again, hello and welcome. My name is Martin, and today we're going to be doing the last part of the flamethrower. Obviously, this is meant to be a weapon, so the weapon has to be able to cause damage or be able to inflict some type of either a collision or a hit on an enemy, so then that way you can register, the enemy knows how to blow itself up. So let's just take a look at what's happening right now. So if I were to go to where my evil cubes are, and let's just put a mine down there for right now, that'll be easy because it doesn't move around, and it's the most simplest of the enemies that we have created. Okay, let's drop at least one more. Let's drop a few up there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is grab my first person character and move them here in front so we don't have to move too far every time we have to get into the into a demo or to test. Okay, so the main thing that we're going to have to do, or right, let's show you what's actually happening. So right now, if I was to walk up to them and hit them, obviously if I shoot them, they go away. But if I hit them with the either with the flamethrower or with the ice, it does nothing. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to have some type of reaction to the enemy of the enemies to us. So the first thing we're going to do is go to content, go to first person BP. We're going to go to blueprints, and we're going to go to the first person character. In the first person character, we will eventually do something to event graph, but the first thing we need to do is to create a capsule setting which is going to mimic or be essentially in the vicinity of where the flamethrower is going to be. So let's add a capsule. So we're going to add component. We're going to scroll down until we see a collision, and we're going to grab a capsule. So we have a second capsule now. This capsule, what we're going to want to do is flip it, let's say vertically to 90 degrees, and then from here we need to make this quite a bit longer. So let's make this about 60 by 40, and the other thing I had done, and actually, let's see, let's make this, let's make that something like that. That may be a little bit too long. Let's make it maybe 160. Let's go 200. Okay. So with it being at about 200, we're going to then grab this and roughly put it in the position or in the facility of the gun, so that we get closer to where the guns, where it would be coming out from, or the business end of the gun, I should say. Okay, so that's pretty close. Now, the thing is that we want to attach this directly to the sphere, so then that way it can find it. So we're actually going to drag this and drag it into the sphere. So you see that it's now one in on the sphere, and you notice now that with the animation of the arm, this thing is now moving around. So that's exactly what we want there. Let's just go ahead and see if we can't fix the location of this just a little bit better so it's closer. Okay, now before we leave here, there's something else that I would like to do. We are eventually going to be changing the collision boxes on a lot of this stuff, and unfortunately, if we don't move the sphere out of the way, we are going to it's going to hit our capsule, or it's going to hit our box, our collision box, and that's going to become a problem for us. So let's go through, and not the gun, but the sphere, because this is essentially where we're going to be launching everything from. So the sphere, and I guess when we do this, we'll have to move back our capsule just a little bit. Okay, sphere is even with that. So I'm leaving the sphere outside. I'm going to go back to the capsule, and let's drop this back inside. Okay, so now where everything is going to be emitting from, which is the sphere, will be outside of the box. So we'll see that we can clearly see that it's outside of the box, with the flamethrower still being generated fairly close to where we are. Okay, fantastic. So the other thing we'll have to do is do collision settings with this. So a lot of the rest of this tutorial is just going to be going over collision settings. So we're going to go to the capsule's collision settings, our capsule, the capsule for the first person player, and we are going to scroll down and let's see what collision settings. I have to check my notes real quick. Okay, so for the first person capsule, this is going to be generate hits. We are going to want to change the overlaps off, no, custom, collision settings enable. We want this to be registered as a pawn, and then we want it to block everything except for projectiles. Okay, the next thing we'll have to do is the capsule settings. So if we scroll down and we see where our collision settings are for the capsule, we are going to want to put this to, we do want it to generate a hit. We do want it to generate overlaps. We wanted to yes, do step on characters. Then this needs to be changed to collision enabled. Collision enabled. Oh, I'm sorry, this is going to be custom. Okay. Then we want collision enabled, query and physics. And the last bit of this is going to be everything is going to be blocked except for the pawn and except for the projectile. We're going to ignore the projectile. We're going to create overlaps with the pawns. Everything else will be blocked. And we want this particular item to be registered as a pawn. Okay. Last thing is the box collision. So the box, the bounding box that we put around our character. Let's go to its collision settings. And on its settings, let's leave this as it does generate hits. We do not want this to create collision effects. We want no. We want this on custom. Then we want no collisions. Okay, so we don't want any collisions to be generated with this. Then we want pawn as the object type. And we're going to scroll down to block everything except for the projectiles. Okay, so what this is going to do is if we get shot by the projectile, which is generated by the turret, we will take damage. It will generate a hit event, and we're going to switch our damage codes and everything over from events to hits the way that we've set it up. So where it was that hit was causing us damage before, or I'm sorry, collisions were causing us damage before, now we're going to generate damage on the first person character through hits. And the reason why we're doing this is because of the way that we're going to have to turn on and off the collision capsule for this. And the reason why is because this, if we leave this the way that it is right now, and we hit compile and save, and we go and we test this, the second I walk up to something, notice that I did not have to have that turned on. Essentially, that capsule component, the let's see if I can switch around. This, as soon as I run into something, breaks it, right? So if we were, let's say, trying to use our projectiles and we had this engaged, we would just have to walk in front. We'd just have to walk towards the character, and that's it. We wouldn't have to hit the middle key or the right key to generate the flame or the ice. So what we need to do now is we need to find a way to toggle this on and off. And the way that we're going to do that is by going back to the first person character, going to the event graph, and way up here where we have our event begin play, and we have a sequence for this. What we want to actually do is we're going to move everything down. So I've already created an extra pin down here. So I'm going to, let's say, break that and join that up to the bottom. And we're doing this because the code that I want this to be the first thing that happens, or it should happen immediately after. Let's say we put it on number 2, so it happens before this event, which is really what we're looking for. So the code that we're looking for here is what's called a set collision enabled. So we're going to drag off of this and we're going to type in set collision enabled, and we want to set this for the flame capsule. And let's say I think it's actually this piece of code right here. So the set collision enabled, and we want to grab the capsule, which is our fire capsule, or the capsule that we're using for our flame to hit, and we want to leave this with no collision. So essentially, what this is saying is when the game starts, after you've done 1 and 2, go to 3, and we want to set the collision off essentially for the capsule itself. So basically what this will do is if we go and we hit save and we test this now, is our capsule is still there, but now we can walk up in front of the character. Now again, if we were to hit the flame, we no longer get it because the capsule is disabled. It is no longer working. So with that, what we can do now is go back to the code, and we need to write in a way for this to be enabled. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go find our flamethrower, and inside of our flamethrower, I'm going to move this code out of the way. This is what was generating our sound for us, and we can leave it about right there. Okay. And before we get to this sequence node, what we want to do is we want to set another one of these set enableds. So let's, and actually what we could do is just go and copy and paste it. So let's copy and paste it from here. So we're going to grab those and hit Control C. And let's scroll back to our flame, and our I should say our torch. Control V. All right, fine. It doesn't want to do it. We'll just do an enable. What was this? Oh yeah, set collision. Set collision enabled. Okay. Again, we want this to be off of the capsule. So you're going to drag that to the target, and we're going to stick this here. So that is going to go to the collision enabled, and then from the collision enabled, we will go to the sequence. And the thing that we need to change here is obviously we want to enable, we want the collisions enabled for query and for physics. Okay, so essentially what we're saying is with this piece of the code, what we're doing is, and I like to kind of drag this down here to the bottom where it's relevant. Whoops, that's too much to the bottom. Okay, so next to the flamethrower, I realize that what's happening is that when the event starts, we are turning our capsule off, or we're turning the collisions for our capsule off. And then after we've pushed the button to activate our weapon, or our flamethrower in this case, that it is going to enable the collision for that. And then the other piece that we need to do is that when we release, we need to disable it again. So let's grab this, and we should be able to Control C. I hope it works this time. We'll click here and hit Control V, and it did. And we're going to set this in line with the fade out, right? So we're going to grab the release from the weapon 2, right click, break the link, and let's drag that first to the set collision enabled, and then from that to the fade out. Okay, so there is the code that we have now for the collision box. So essentially what's going to happen is this thing will not be active. Once we turn it on, it will be active, or once we hit the middle mouse button, it will be active, and then it'll deactivate itself as soon as we hit the release key. So let's go and test this real quick. Let's see if it's working. So we're going to get rid of that box and hit play, and we should walk up to the box with no effect, right? And now I'm going to hit my flamethrower, and notice that it destroyed it. If I leave my flamethrower on and I walk into the next box, it did destroy that box. If I turn my flamethrower off, and I walk over into the vicinity of the next box, notice that it's not doing anything to me now. Now, some of you astute people will notice that this is causing us damage. Let's do that one more time. Let's go to play, and if we hit it with that, it's not causing us damage. If we hit it with the flamethrower, it is. So we'll fix that here in just a second, but let's go and fix our ice thrower first. So let's do the same code that we did to the flame, to the flamethrower, to the ice thrower. So we're going to double click in first person player. This part we don't need to redo because this is coming from the event begin start. But what we are going to need to do is copy this, Control C. We're going to need to add that again down here to the ice thrower in the same place. So we'll attach that to that. And then let's attach the release of the third button weapon to there. Okay, so now that part is correct. And now what we need to do is actually turn it on. So let's do that again. Move that slightly out of the way. And we will, because we still have this, we should be able to, I think I made 2 of them. All right. And same thing here. We're going to drag off of the spawn emitter. And we're going to drag from there to the set collision enabled, and then from the enabled back to the sequence. Okay, and don't forget to change the collision type to collision. So again, what's happening is it's turned off when we start the game. As soon as we hit the button for the ice thrower, it's going to be turned back on. And once we release the button for the ice thrower, it's going to turn itself back on, off. So let's hit compile and save, and let's see if this now works with our torch, with our ice thrower as well. So we're going to walk up. We notice that we do not do anything to the boxes that are there. As soon as I throw the ice thrower on, it starts to generate the ice. I'm going to walk over. We were able to blow that one up. Nothing is happening to those. Again and again. Okay, fantastic. So now we have the ice thrower and the flamethrower working. Let's go and fix the collision settings for the boxes, so then that way they will actually be working the way we need them to, so they do not cause us damage. So this will be first person BP. I'll go to content. I'm going to go back to my Evil Cubes folder. I'm going to go to the S mine, and I'm going to double click on the S mine to open up its blueprint. And essentially what we have to do here is one of these is for when we run into it, and the other one is for when we overlap it. So the overlap is what's causing us damage, and because we have this more narrowly defined, we actually don't need to have this piece of the code, and we're actually going to chop off the whole front half of this. So again, I'm in S mine. I'm going into where it says event actor begin overlap right before the damage, and I'm going to delete all of that. I'm also going to come down here to the second piece of this code, and I'm going to delete the on component hit cube. Okay, so with those 2 pieces gone, let me just go take a quick look at my notes. And okay, so for the box collisions, what we're going to want to do is scroll down, and let's make it no generate hit, generate an overlap. Yes, we want this to be set to no. We want it to have a custom setting. We do want the collision enabled query physics, and we want this to be set to a pawn. We then want it to ignore everything except for the pawn and for the projectile. So essentially this box is going to now generate an overlap event, which is going to make the box explode. And the way we know that's going to happen is because we're going to change what was connected to the beginning of this. So we're going to go to box with it selected. We're going to right click on this, and we're going to go to add event from box. We're going to go into collisions, and remember that we want the overlap effect with this. So we're going to say beginning overlap. we're going to attach that to the first part here. And remember, this is the piece of the code that's not causing damage. This is the one that's going to cause our character, cause the cube to explode without causing us damage. And if we wanted to, we can make this little... Okay, so there we see it. So on begin overlap of the box itself, it's going to generate the explosion sprite, and it's going to then destroy the actor. And then from there, or the explosion of the sprite itself, it's going to know where to transform because of the cube. And then once this is finished, it's going to then destroy itself, the cube and the box collision, so that there's nothing left over. Now with the code above it, let's move this over so we can put them next to each other. And let's just clean this one up a little bit too. So okay, so this is now the code that is causing the damage, and we want this to be coming off of the cube. So let's look at the cube settings. So we'll go to cube, and we will with the cube selected, right click, and we want this to be a hit because we want because our flamethrower is creating collision settings and we're turning on and off the collision settings, we can't have that generating damage on the first person because everything that we hit with the flamethrower would then cause our first person damage, which is what we saw earlier. So we're going to go to collisions and we're going to say add on component hit, and this is then going to go to the apply damage. So now whenever we create a hit event, or whenever a hit event is generated, this is when we're going to take the damage. So we could select over this piece and we could say C, and we could say that this is projectile collision or overlap. Oh, I can't spell. Overlap that causes S-mine to destroy. And I'm going to write in there specifically no damage, okay, with the top one being the opposite of that. So we're going to hit a C to put a box around it, or comment box around it. And in this one, we're going to say let's say this is going to be a cube hit, F cube, cube hit that causes damage to first person character and causes S-mine to destroy itself. Okay, so now we know what those two pieces of the code do. Let's go ahead and hit compile and save. We should have all of our cube and box collision settings. I want to double check and make sure that my my cube collision settings are set correctly. And they were not. So cube collision box settings should be set to yes, generate a hit, yes, generate an overlap. We do want these to be able to step one on top of the other. We don't want this, we want this on custom. We want collisions enabled. We want it to be registered as a pawn. And then we want everything to be blocked. Everything to be blocked. So then that way everything generates a hit and everything generates a hit. All right, so let's hit compile and save. And now let's go and check and see what happens. So, okay, so I should be able to walk up and okay, so something is wrong with my projectiles, which is fine, but that's not what we were setting this for. So notice that now I can hit that with the ice and it's not happening now, and it's not causing me damage. So let's check the flamethrower, and the flamethrower is also working. So fantastic. So now we have the flamethrower causing other objects to blow up, but without causing ourselves damage. We do have the flamethrower and the ice thrower doing both of those things. So in the next video, what we'll do is we will clean up the last of this, which will be getting the projectiles to hit their targets and create the type of explosion that we're looking for, as well as going through each one of the other enemies. The mine, well, we've done the S mine already. It would be the zombie character, the shooting turret, and the homing missile. So we'll get all the collision settings on those correctly, as well as setting up any type of bounding boxes or collision boxes that we need for that. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a wonderful day, and bye-bye.